तो मैं डॉक्टर आनंद बाल योगी भवनानी सर से अनुरोध करूंगा कि वो आज के विषय के अनुरूप अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करें। आनंद बाल योगी सर एक बहुत ही अच्छे वक्ता हैं, साइंटिस्ट हैं और योग के क्षेत्र में इनका बहुत बड़ा योगदान रहा है। तो मेरा अनुरोध डॉक्टर आनंद बाल योगी भवनानी सर से कि आज के विषय के अनुरूप वो अपने विचार प्रस्तुत करें।
Namaste, Namaskaram, Swagatam, Shubdinam, Suprapad. What a wonderful day to be with all of you. The 5th anniversary of the founding of the Gujarat chapter of Indian Yoga Association. And I think I have been there for all the previous 4 years, if I'm not wrong. And some of the years it has been on the same day my father's Mahasamadhi was celebrated. I remember a couple of years ago, it was on 29th December, where my father's puja was going on, and I was from there, I joined all of you. One of the most active chapters of the Indian Yoga Association. And we congratulate the whole team led by my most dear and beloved brother in yoga, Acharya Birju Maharaj Ji. He and I share the love for yoga. We both consider that yoga is our divine mother. We both come from traditional lineages. We both want that the tradition of yoga should be shared with the contemporary understanding in a modern scientific manner for the sake of humanity. Mital ji has been putting so much of effort into everything she does, and her work with the project Life really something to be appreciated so deeply. Thank you so much for the efforts you make, Mital Koticha ji. Similarly, whenever I meet Rajiv ji, there's such a joy. We hug each other because there's such a joy in yoga. Please remember, yoga is to be joyful, not something to be too serious. And again, Mauli ji and her wonderful work with Nada Yoga, and the whole team here, Nataraj ji, Vikram ji, Sarita Sharma ji, and the most important of all, my dear Professor Madan Mohan ji, my own yoga research guru, someone who is a fatherly figure to me, the one who has enabled me to become, I was introduced as a yoga scientist. The person who's made me the yoga scientist is Madan Mohan sir, because he has taught me what it is to live yoga. So we are having him with us today. I'm looking forward to listening to sir also. The topic of Akhand Bharat is a topic very close to my heart. And I believe that the world today is fragmenting faster and faster. Everybody wants to have their own territory. Everybody wants to have their own individuality. Forgetting that the more we focus on individuality and territorial acquisition, the more fragmented we become as a society. And that fragmentation of the society will reflect in the fragmentation of the individual too. When we decide that we are different than others, our mind and body will say we are also different than each other. And when your mind doesn't like your body and your body doesn't like your mind, it is like two people who hate each other having to live in a single bedroom flat for the whole life. That is the type of negative impact we have today. Because that splintering, that fragmentation is not only in society, it is the reflection of what is happening in us also. Imagine trillions of cells in our body, and each cell starts to say, I will be my own boss. If every one of your cells starts to revolt and says, I want my own territory, what will happen? You will not exist as a wholesome, whole person individual. This is what has happened today, where even in the modern Bharat, since 1947, though we were brought together by the great Iron Man of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel ji, Despite his efforts, today, 76 years later, we are still so splintered in many, many ways. Linguistically, we are splintered. Culturally, we are splintered. Religiously, we are splintered. Even yogically, ayogically, we are splintered. Yogically, you cannot be splintered, but ayogically, we are splintered. People of one tradition don't want to talk to another tradition. People of one tradition criticize the other tradition, saying what they are doing is not yoga. That itself is against the spirit of yoga. Hence, recently, the Indian Yoga Association has developed a code of conduct and ethics for yoga professionals. It is up on our website, and one of the key components is to respect all traditions. Because the greatness of Akhand Bharat is unity in diversity. We understand the Vedic dictum, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. We understand it is one. Again, we understand Ano Badra Kridavo Yanto Vishwataha. We understand that noble thoughts can come from all directions, not only from us. And this is why I always tell my students that even if I follow my father's tradition as given to him by his gurus, I respect each and every tradition of yoga. Because each and every tradition of yoga is perfect in its own context. So if we want Akhand Bharat to be there, if we want oneness of Bharat to be there geographically, culturally, and spiritually, we as the custodians of yoga today, we are not the owners of yoga. Please understand. We are not the owners of yoga. We are the custodians. We are to be the loving caretakers of yoga today. We are to spread yoga with love, compassion, goodwill. And if that is to be there, we have to come together as one, which is why the Indian Yoga Association bringing all the living traditions together. Recently, we have celebrated 15 years officially of the Indian Yoga Association, but the idea goes back about 20 years, where in Delhi, in Moraji Desai National Institute, we all came together thanks to Basava Reddy ji, and all started to come together under the leadership of our great Bhishma Pitama, V.K. Iyengar ji. If we want that Akhand Bharat, it is not that we say we will go and invade Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal and make it all Akhand Bharat and go up to Afghanistan. No. Bharat is not only a geographical entity, it is a cultural identity. And I'm going to repeat that it is not only a geographical entity, it is a cultural identity. And this is why today I feel this Akhand Bharat is a universal phenomena that can be across the globe. People can live in Australia and still feel that sense of Bharat. People can live in America and still have that feeling of identity of Bharat, because that identity of Bharat is a cultural feeling. It is a spiritual identity which yoga gives us. Our dear Subramaniam ji just now talked about, don't mistake asana to be the holistic aspect of yoga. Asana is one component, an important component. Just like my little finger is part of me, but the little finger doesn't represent the whole me. Little finger is important, yes, but it is not the whole me. And that is why we need to go back to the traditional aspect of yoga. We need to stand up for yoga. Today, the biggest threat to this oneness of Akhand Bharat is not a political rivalry. It is an identity crisis. Because today, people abroad, we have the so-called yoga scholar who are trying to demean the yoga tradition. That we have to be very careful if we want Akhand Bharat as a cultural identity. You have to be very careful of these yoga scholars. They have great academic skill, but what they are writing, Madan Mohan ji used to call it beautiful nonsense. It is very beautifully written, beautifully shared, but it is nonsense. Because they are demeaning the living tradition of yoga. The living tradition of yoga, which is thousands of years old, that goes all the way back to the great Maharishis of Bharat. And that is why yoga is a Rishi culture. And we are the custodians of that culture. And that is why we have to stand up for what is yoga. Yoga is not something that was invented, a couple of 100 years ago by Russian gymnasts in the British rule. This is what they try to say. They try to say that Tantra originated from Buddhism. They try to make it sound like yoga was created 200 years ago and that nothing before that was there. Yoga is a Vaidika tradition. Remember, Vaidika tradition. And as Madan Mohanji says, Rig Veda is the first literature of humanity. I'm not even going to call it a book because books are, as again Sir says, books are for the obedience of fools and books are for the guidance of the wise. You should use a book to guide you, not to obey it. Rig Veda is the first literature of humanity. And right from the Rig Veda time, we have the cultural context of yoga. So when we talk of Akhand Bharat, what I want to stress is that it is not only a geographical aspect, it is a spiritual identity, an identity that is fostered by the wholesome, holistic living of yoga. Yoga is not something you do. Yoga is something you are. Yoga is not, people say, Dr. Ananda, how much yoga do you do per day? I say 24 hours. Since when have you been in yoga? I say my age plus 9 months. Because I was conceived in yoga by my parents. They say, what do you mean? Can you talk about your life before and after yoga? I'll have to talk about lifetimes before and after yoga. Because yoga is life. That is why Sri Aurobindo, whose 150th birth anniversary we are celebrating here in Pondicherry, he said, all life is yoga. My beloved father, Swami Geetananda Giri, said, yoga is a way of life. And as Ammaji so beautifully has said, yoga is every moment awareness. Can we develop that every moment awareness? Can yoga be our life? And can we realize yoga is our divine mother? And we should be the loving children of the divine mother, standing up for her, letting the world know what true yoga is in the context of Akhanda Bharata Sanskriti. Thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity to share with all of you. I love my yoga family more than anything, and may Indian Yoga Association grow from strength to strength. Jai Yoga, Jai Bharat. Dhanyavada.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir.